So, hello everybody. Today we will be discussing about the civil aviation conventions. So, before we start, we will firstly talk about why these conventions were implemented and what are the various outcomes of these conventions. So, if we happen to talk about the International Civil Aviation Organization, we have been studying about the ICAO, that's the International Civil Aviation Organization, and we have also discussed about when this ICAO was formed, but we didn't discuss yet about what were the reasons for the starting up or for the establishment of the International Civil Aviation Organization. So today we'll discuss about the history of the ICAO. And besides that, we will also discuss about the various conventions that led after the establishment of the ICAO. So basically, it was in the year 1944 that the Convention on the International Civil Aviation, it was drafted by 54 nations. And the very reason of drafting this Convention on International Civil Aviation was to establish or to create and preserve the friendship and understanding among the nations and the people of the world in the aviation industry, basically. This convention on the international civil aviation, which was drafted in 1944, is commonly known as Chicago Convention. And the very landmark agreement of starting of this Chicago Convention was to establish the core principles that permit the international transport by air, and this has led to creation of specialized agency. And you know what the specialized agency is, that is the ICAO. So what we understand is that this Chicago Convention has led to the formation of ICAO. And when we talk about the year 1944, so this was the year after the world wars, wherein there have been several advancement in the development of the aeroplanes. And you must know that a vast network of passenger and freight carriage was set up during this period. But again, because of this world war, there were so many obstacles, both political and technical. And these obstacles were causing hindrances in the formation of an international body. So, taking this into consideration, the US government has extended an invitation to 55 states to attend an international civil aviation conference in Chicago in 1944. I know what these people, the delegates from the 55 states, met at a very dark time in the human history. And this dark time was because of the World War. And these guys have traveled to Chicago at their own personal risk. In the end, 55 of the 55 countries invited to attend the Chicago conference. And when it was ended on 7th December 1944, 52 contracting states had signed the new convention on international civil aviation that has been realized actually. As I told you, that the Chicago Convention, that is the convention on the international civil aviation. So this has led to the foundation for the standards and procedures for peaceful global air navigation. It's just to, uh, I mean, the core objective of the development of international civil aviation, or I would rather say that Chicago Convention's core objective was to develop the international civil aviation in a safe and orderly manner. And the air transportation services should be established on the basis of equality of opportunity and operated soundly and economically. So the ICAO's core mandate was to help the contracting states to achieve the highest possible degree of uniformity in civil aviation regulations, standards, procedures, and the organizations. Now, now, since this ICAO was developed at a very early stages, there were also expectations from the assembly, or I would rather say the expectations from the members of the contracting states to join more number of countries, to join more number of states internationally. So this Chicago conference, they have signed an interim agreement that has led to creation of provisional ICAO. So this provisional ICAO, which is also stated as PICO, it was to serve as a temporary advisory and coordinating body. I mean, this is basically a temporary body, the provisional ICAO. So the provisional ICAO is just like, suppose if you have qualified, or if you have completed, or if you have passed your graduation examinations, you would get a provisional certificate, or a provisional course completion certificate, or a provisional degree certificate. So this provisional degree certificate is an interim degree, or it's just a temporary degree. Later on, after you will have received the provisional degree, in the end, you'll get a convocation from the university. So that is a final degree. So basically, provisional degree is awarded just to serve the temporary purposes, because the final degree takes a bit of time to be received. So yes, now talking about the provisional ICAO, this provisional ICAO consisted of interim council and interim assembly. We have discussed that the ICAO consists of the council members and the assembly members, right? So PICO, that's a provisional ICAO, as it is an interim or the temporary advisory and coordinating body. This consisted of interim council and interim assembly. And from June 1945, these the interim council, they met continuously in Montreal, Canada, and these gatherings, or these meetings, I would rather say, consisted of 21 member states. So finally, as this grew up, on 4th April 1947, there were sufficient ratifications to Chicago Convention. And ratifications, I would rather say, the advancements, or the acknowledgements, or uh, the approvals. So on 4th April 1947, when more and more approvals or acknowledgements were received to the Chicago Convention, the provisional aspects of PICAO were no longer relevant, because it's just like uh, a provisional degree is being revoked, or will be revoked after you will have received an original degree. Okay, so I mean, when you complete your graduation, your degree, whenever you receive your final degree certificate, your provisional degree certificate, that stands invalid. So similarly, the PICO, that's a provisional ICAO, has become an official ICAO. That's the provisional was removed from ICAO, and the first official ICAO assembly was held in Montreal in the May of 1947, after the provisional aspects were removed. Now, because of the modification of PICAO to ICAO, uh, and the reason to convert the provisional ICAO to the actual ICAO was to modernize the air transport. Now, because of this modernization, the convention's annexes have increased in the number, and today there are more than 12,000 international standards and recommended practices, and all of which have been agreed by the ICAO's today's 193 member states. When people started understanding the importance of the Chicago Convention, more and more delegates or the representatives from the different countries have been added up to ICAO. And today, you must know that there are 193 member states of the International Civil Aviation Organization. Now, this standard and operating procedures or standard and recommended practices, they were implemented to have a tremendous technological progress and contributions. And this advancements, uh, this advancements had or have led to socio-economic development, and then one of the humanity's greatest cooperative achievements in terms of the modern international air transport network. So to summarize, the Convention on International Civil Aviation, which is basically called as Chicago Convention, was signed on 7th December 1944 by 52 contracting states, leading to creation of provisional ICAO. Okay, and there were a pending ratification by at least 26 states. So 30 days after the 26th ratification, which means that 30, I mean, see, there were 26 states that were not that have not approved this provisional ICAO. So after the last state, after the 26th state has approved the provisional ICAO, 30 days after, this PICAO was removed, and finally on 4th April 1947, the ICAO was established as a specialized agency of the United Nations. So when we talk about why has this ICAO formed, we need to understand that ICAO was created to promote safe and efficient development of civil aviation, and its council, I mean the ICAO's council, is charged with administration of the principles laid down in Chicago Convention. So basically, see, the Chicago Convention was held wherein different principles were admitted and laid. So the council is charged with the administration of those principles that were laid out in Chicago Convention. Now, these principles involve setting international standards and regulations for aviation safety, security, efficiency, as well as the environmental protection of aviation. So again, the first edition or the first meeting of Chicago Convention did not actually really touch the aviation security, because it was, I mean, because it was the end of, because it was the end of the World War, and there were also some Cold Wars. There was a Cuban Revolution, and the problems that were surrounding, Palestinian statehood. So all these were going on. All these security issues were going on during that time. So as a result, it was not until 1963 the first worldwide legal agreement or legal instrument relating to aviation security was actually implemented. So this 1963, what I told, where the first worldwide legal instrument relating to aviation security that was actually implemented, is the beginning of in-flight security that was in Tokyo. So basically, that is called as a Tokyo Convention. So this is all about. So this is all about the formation or the establishment of ICAO or the Chicago Convention. So we'll talk about the other conventions later on.